Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the latest in our series of Doha debates, coming to you from the Gulf state of Qatar and sponsored by the Qatar Foundation. In March, judges at the International Criminal Court went ahead and issued an arrest warrant for Sudan's President Omar Hassan al-Bashir, the first time this has happened to a sitting head of state. He stands accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity, which he denies. But the indictment has divided opinion around the world. Many are calling for the president's immediate arrest. Others, including the Arab League, reject the charges against him. One official called the court a mechanism of neo-colonialist policy used by the West against free and independent countries. Well, our motion tonight stands at the heart of the controversy. This House believes that Arab states should hand over the Sudanese president to the International Criminal Court. And our speakers reflect the sharp divisions over this issue. Speaking for the motion, Ahmed Hussein Adam, for 6 years the main spokesman for the most active of Sudan's rebel groups, the Justice and Equality Movement. He was one of its main negotiators in talks with Sudan's government here in Doha in February, where the two sides agreed on a declaration of intent to try to end the conflict in Darfur. With him, Hani Shakrallah, head of Egypt's Haikal Foundation for Arab Journalism. He's also a founding member of the Egyptian Organization for Human Rights and a consultant to the Al-Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies, one of the leading think tanks in the Middle East. Now, speaking against the motion, Roland Marshall, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for Study and International Research at Sciences Po in Paris, and an expert on politics and conflict in Africa. He's written extensively on Darfur, Chad, and Somalia. And with him, Ghazi Atabani, an advisor to Sudan's president and a member of both Parliament and the Leadership Council of the National Congress Party. He has wide experience at the highest levels of government, including such posts as Minister of Communications and Minister of Information. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel. So now let me first call on Ahmed Hussein Adam to speak for the motion.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. I'm very much in favor of this motion. As a matter of fact, I'm strongly support this motion that the Arab states should hand over al-Bashir to the International Criminal Court, because I believe that al-Bashir has committed war crimes and crimes against humanity, and he should be accountable and held accountable before the court of law. And the only court of law, the only legal organ which can prosecute al-Bashir is the International Criminal Court. Because in Sudan we cannot serve justice. In Sudan we cannot do this job because al-Bashir is in control in everything, and we don't have any laws actually which prescribe war crimes and crimes against humanity. And I think that prosecuting al-Bashir before the International Criminal Court is a good thing. It's good for the people of Darfur, good for the Sudan, good for the entire world. And I think that this is the only way that we can fight and combat the impunity. This is the only way that we can send a strong message to dictators and human rights violators around the world. And this is the only way that we can respond positively to the victims right now who are watching us here and watching actually the result of this debate. And I think, I believe that, and I urge the audience actually to support this motion because it is good for our people, and it's good for the Arab world, it's good also for the Africa. And I think that it is a good thing to do, because you cannot let these people actually kill us in the name of sovereignty, in the name of domestic jurisdiction, and also killing us in the name of fighting the Western conspiracy. I think the indictment of al-Bashir will be a good thing to do, because we are going to have a better world without a dictator like al-Bashir. Thank you very much.
Ahmed Hassan Adam, thank you very much. I'm puzzled by your stand. On the one hand, you sit down with President Bashir's administration to talk peace, and on the other hand, you want him carted off to the International Criminal Court. If he was carted off, who exactly would you be talking peace with? Because peace is our strategic option, and we sat not with al-Bashir. We sat with the government. With his administration. We sat with the government of national unity, actually, that composed of directed by him, carrying out his wishes.
Well, I think that's the dilemma, actually, but for everybody...
It's more than a dilemma, isn't it? It's a major problem. You break off peace talks in the middle to have him carted off to the ICC, you've got nobody left to talk to.
We broke the peace...
The process falls apart, doesn't it?
We suspended our participation in the talks because al-Bashir violated the very agreement which we signed with him here in Doha. We signed that agreement for him to stop the obstruction of humanitarian assistance. Instead, actually, he expelled the aid workers and the humanitarian organization from Darfur, which used to provide about 60%.
So you're not even talking peace now. Your desire for peace, your declaration of intent didn't last very long, did it? If you've broken off the talks already.
No, we are committed to that declaration of intent. But the other side actually violated that.
How can you be if you've broken off the talks? Who are you talking to now? Nobody.
No, we are not talking to them right now because they are violating that agreement and because right now they are starting a new phase of genocide against our people by using food actually as a weapon in this conflict.
But you take away the man who is at the center of power there, in the middle of a war, in the middle of a major humanitarian disaster, perhaps the world's worst ongoing humanitarian disaster, and you don't expect the country to fall apart as a result. You're gambling with the lives of tens of millions of people.
No, the one who is gambling is al-Bashir. The one who...
You don't know what the result is going to be, do you? If he's arrested now, or in the next 6 months, you don't know what's going to happen. I don't, but you don't either.
I think if the arrested Sudan will be a better place, actually. And actually, al-Bashir, the international community stand against al-Bashir. Instead of appeasing al-Bashir, of expelling this humanitarian organization, I think al-Bashir should be punished for this act.
Okay.
Because this is real violation and clear violation to international humanitarian law.
Ahmed Hassan Adam, thank you very much indeed. Now, please let me call on Roland Marshall to speak against the motion.
Huge violations of human rights have been committed in Darfur, and certainly the Sudanese government bears the main responsibility for those acts. The ICC decision is certainly an acknowledgement of the suffering of those people. Again, we have to keep that in mind. Nevertheless, I would be against the motion for three very different reasons. We have to look at ICC as it is, which means a very young institution full of potential, but as well that multiplicated blunders, mistakes, and maybe wrong political choices over the years, not only on Sudan. And I believe that this institution is maybe not as mature as to exercise its mandate today. Its political expertise is really very low, especially on Africa. And then the main point maybe is the ICC shouldn't intervene while the conflict is still on. Certainly, we could see room for the ICC to play a role within transitional justice when the conflict got a settlement where the situation is cooled down, when people could reflect on actually what happened among them. So to say it in a very provocative way, I do not believe that there is peace without justice. The third aspect is the current situation of Sudan. People who were supporting the indictment of President Bashir saw that that will lead to a major improvement in talks and as well as the overall political situation in Sudan. 13 international NGOs have been expelled. Sudanese human rights activists and journalists have been arrested. And we don't see that the regime is going to show very much flexibility in the near future. On the other side, as we just witnessed, the insurgency is getting more unrealistic about what he could get from this situation.
Could we come to an end, please?
Many believe that actually the ICC decision is just a further step towards regime change. And of course, this doesn't help to find a settlement in Darfur.
Well, if Africa and the weak countries were complaining about that, why was it that this year alone 12 African countries proposed judges to the court? 30 of the 108 nations who signed up to the court are from Africa.
That's true. That's true.
So,
but Africans are increasingly
where are these
the same
neo-colonialists that your government is complaining about when talking
about
the court?
when they decided to introduce a linkage between the Security Council and the ICC. That was where it went wrong.
The ICC remains independent.
It's not.
You know that.
It's not, because cases are referred to it by the Security Council.
That doesn't mean that it doesn't have independence.
Yes, because the Security Council is the most politicized institution in the world.
You would be complaining whoever had sent the case, wouldn't you?
No, well, this because it was the Security Council who sent the case. It shouldn't have been sent by the Security Council.
Why wouldn't your president want to have his day in court? He faces some of the most serious charges that can be leveled at anybody on this planet. If he's innocent, as you say, and he says, why wouldn't he want his day in court to clear his name?
Because in the second reason I mentioned, I have claims about the neutrality and the impartiality of the court. I have objections to the court.
If he's innocent, he shouldn't have a problem clearing
well,
his name.
If he's innocent and the court is not innocent, they won't judge him as innocent. That's what I'm saying.
عتباني, thank you very much indeed. Let me just remind you of the motion. This House believes that Arab states should hand over the Sudanese president to the International Criminal Court. I'm going to take your questions now. Gentleman in the third row, you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tim Sebastian. I have a question to the side for the motion.
Where are you from, please?
I am Ahmed Abdullah. I'm from Kenya.
From Kenya?
Yeah. So, sticking by the rule of law, is there any place in the constitution of ICC that stipulates a president in power can be indicted? If so, could you help us in stating it?
The Statute of Rome is very clear that regardless of any official position, any member of the government or general, army general or something, he has to be prosecuted if he committed certain crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide, and crime of genocide. That is very clear. And this is the main, characteristic of that statute. That people in power, whoever committed any kind of crime, should be held.
Okay. غازي عتباني.
We have to remember that the Statute of Rome is full of holes. The Statute of Rome does not see aggression or the use of nuclear power as a crime. So we have objections to the Statute of Rome. I don't think it's the most perfect statute. And we have, the second thing is the applicability. Okay, it might look nice, it might look beautiful, but in actual fact, we cannot imagine in our wildest dreams the Statute of Rome being applied to an American corporal, for instance, let alone an American president. So
where there war crimes committed or not? I mean, I really would like a Sudanese official to answer this question clearly. Where there war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in
You can say Bashir is a bad person, and I say...
No, I'm not. I'm asking you a very specific question.
Let him answer it then.
Yeah, you could say Bashir is a bad person. I could say he's a good person. That's my word against your word. It doesn't count.
That was not what I said.
What matters is, the question is the House of the opinion that Bashir should be handed over to the ICC. What I'm arguing is the ICC is not equipped, and the case is flimsy, the case is weak. It's not the way to do it.
All right, we're going to take another question. A gentleman in the third row, you, sir.
By sending President al-Bashir to the ICC, the questions for the motion. How long do you think Sudan can stay without a president, and who do you think can stay instead of President al-Bashir?
Would you like to answer?
I believe that as Sudanese, we have to address this challenge. That's why we are in Justice and Equality Movement propose that to have a transitional government of national unity, so that to address and to fill this vacuum.
Yeah, but who?
Who? Sorry?
Who would be the president?
I think for the Sudanese people to decide that. But we cannot accept that a war criminal, a suspected war criminal, actually to lead our country, and just because we don't want to change. We need to change, and we need actually Sudanese people to take that
So you just arrest him, and you think you can have a normal election campaign and the normal procedures?
I think the people of Sudan... The people of Sudan...
What about the CPA? How would that...
The Comprehensive Peace Agreement.
The Comprehensive Peace Agreement.
You cannot confine the CPA just for one person. Dr. Yongaram, who was the signatory of the CPA.
Excuse me, let Mr. Adabani say something.
According to the CPA, the president is the custodian, is the guardian of the peace agreement. So you want to take him away. How do you propose to solve the problem arising?
I'm puzzled by this point because, A president could get an embolism and die tomorrow. A country does not collapse because its president. This is such a faith in dictatorship here.
I think you made your point. Roland Marshall,
yeah, the international community has been slightly schizophrenic about Sudan, because on one side, Sudan, or the Sudanese regime, is quote-unquote genocidal on Darfur. On the other side is a good ally in the war on terror. On the third side is a partner in the CPA, in the North-South peace agreement, which is very much valued in Western capitals. So the problem is we are talking about the same regime, and he has three faces. So we have to find a way to get out of that. The ICC decision is just making all those things much more complicated, and getting peace in Darfur, as well as threatening or weakening peace in the North-South, a more likely scenario. So that is why the motion is not appropriate at this time.
Okay, Ahmed Hassan Adam, you want to come back?
What I say is you cannot say that, to use the entire country, just to use the Sudanese people as a shield from just to protect one person actually in Sudan. You cannot use actually to say that the CPA can collapse, because if we indict al-Bashir, then CPA will collapse.
All right, I'm going to move on and take a question from the lady in the third row. Your question is for you, yes.
My name is Fabiha Naomi and I'm from Bangladesh. My question is to Dr. Arabani. 3 million people died, Dr. Arabani. This is not a flimsy case. We need something stronger than that.
Where did you get that figure from? That figure is off the top of your head, obviously. No, 3 million people died.
Excuse me.
3 million people died in Darfur. You have to revise your information.
200,000
al-Bashir.
No. I mean, characterizing a problem.
How many people died?
It's not a question of whether people should be tried or not. I'm not against justice.
Well, it is. That's what we're talking about. Whether he should be handed over to the International Criminal Court.
The motion is, we either support it. Do you support the motion which is handing over Bashir to the ICC? What I'm saying is the ICC is not equipped. If you are talking about justice and how to achieve justice, then that's a different issue. We can talk about it. We can talk about the casualties. You can talk about those who died. That's a different question altogether. There are other ways of delivering justice.
Okay, all right, Ahmed Hassan Adam.
This conflict has been going on for 6 years. Al-Bashir himself, he said 10,000 have died without any remorse or any kind of regret, and that's very insulting actually to the member of our victims. But at the same time, for 6 years, nobody been high level, official being prosecuted. There is no one resigned. There is no one even, regret or even offer any kind of apology or something. For 6 years, there's no one prosecuted. I think this is not a responsible government, actually.
That's not true. There are people being prosecuted at this very moment. You know them. There are people being prosecuted. And
what happened to Harun? What happened to Harun? What happened to Kosher?
What happened to so many people that they have been tried, they have been brought to justice.
I'm going to give a final word to the questioner on this, and then we're going to move on.
So 200,000, if it's 200,000, it's less fatal than 3 million? It's just statistics? No. Even if it's 200,000, it's fatal. And it's not flimsy.
All right,
I'm not talking about flimsy. Flimsy is evidence.
All right,
I'm saying that there's no case.
I'm going to take a question from the lady up there, please.
Good evening. Well, I do have one question for the...
Can we know where you're from, please?
I'm from Iraq. I have one question to Mr. Adam. Don't you consider the recent cooperation with the government, al-Bashir government, here in Doha as an improvement?
The cooperation of al-Bashir, when we came here in Doha, actually, we signed that agreement. But that agreement hasn't been implemented till now. In a matter of fact, they are violating that agreement.
Well,
and they are using for a long time. They are
all sides have violated agreements in the past, haven't they?
But for the long time, let me tell you this. For the long time, the Khartoum used the negotiations and political process as a PR kind of exercise. They never been serious about it. They never commit themselves for a real peaceful solution.
So tell me this, you think the situation would have improved if, when President Bashir came down the steps of his plane, the Qatari authorities here in Doha would have arrested him there and then? That would have improved the situation,
and I think Sudan will be a better place, actually.
You, sir, let's have your question.
Good evening. My name is Mohammed from Yemen. Arabs have been always fighting at the international level to get some empowerment to become an effective party of this international community. Why is it always, when there is a dirty work to be done, whoever mandates it, it comes to the Arab world to implement, but the good ones is not?
What kind of dirty work have the Arabs been asked to do other than facilitate the invasion of Iraq? I mean, they've done that. And actually, they're not about to deliver, I mean, I think to surrender al-Bashir.
I want to remind you of the fact that 12 years of siege against Iraq was orchestrated by America, and the Arab world was asked to participate effectively.
You're quite right.
And the recent example is Gaza, where Gaza was totally sealed, and all Arabs are guilty of that, and where thousands of people were massacred in front of your eyes.
I agree. I'm sorry. But you feel the crimes that were committed by Israel in Gaza, which were facilitated by certain Arab states, or at least not countered by a number of Arab states, aren't these crimes equal to the crimes that were committed in Darfur by al-Bashir? I mean, this is the point, you see.
No. How can you differentiate?
Okay, we're not here to discuss this.
Who is the differentiation here?
I want him also to answer me. Who is the victim for the people of Darfur?
On what
Who is
grounds?
going to pay them? Who is going to serve them justice?
Who makes that distinction?
No, excuse me.
On what differentiation can you make between Darfurians and Gazans?
You've made your point. Thank you very much. You've made your point. I'm going to take a word from him, and then I'll come to you.
This is
Ahmed Hassan Adam. One point, and then I'm going to Roland Marshall.
This is real standard, actually. Because my question is, who is going to serve justice for the people of Darfur, the victim of Darfur? Who is going to serve justice for 700,000 who are refugees right now in camp?
Okay.
Who is going to serve justice for 4.5 million right now in Darfur?
Okay, Roland Marshall.
Instead of talking about the jurisdiction of the
we got your point. Roland Marshall.
Yeah, it should be seen as an international obligation. Why? Not because of the Rome status, but because the resolution that asked the ICC to look on Darfur has been passed under Chapter 7 of the United Nations. Now, the question you have to raise is how many resolutions passed under Chapter 7 by the Security Council are not respected by permanent members, members of the Security Council and members of the General Assembly. You will find quite a lot.
Do two wrongs make a right?
No, that's, I mean, if
two wrongs make a right?
But
just because that was wrong doesn't mean this is wrong as well?
It shows how many standards we have. Certainly not one.
Gentleman in the second row. Gentleman in the second row.
Hassan Ibrahim from Sudan. I believe the issue is the suffering of the people of Darfur. Nobody should belittle the suffering and the crimes of Israel, and that is a totally different point. My problem is you're asking Arab states to hand over al-Bashir. That is not the job of the Arab states, that's the job of the Sudanese people, number one. Number two, all Arab countries didn't move a muscle when the people of Darfur were butchered and massacred since 2003. They don't care 2 cents about the fate of Darfur.
We have a question.
That is my problem. My question is, when are we going to see international responsibility? And don't you think the complicity of the superpowers, like, I mean, the US and other countries that actually sent envoys enticing President Bashir and encouraging him, I mean, is this complicity from the international community with President Bashir or not?
You asked your question. Please, just come to the main question.
I'm coming to the question, please, Mr. Sebastian, because I need to make a point. I'm sorry. I need to make a point. My point
Well, you don't need to. I'm going to let you make a point, but a brief one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's very gracious. Very gracious of you.
There are a lot of people who want to make points.
Thank you.
We're here to answer questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, do you think there is some tacit agreement between the US and the Sudanese government not to hand over President Bashir or not?
Okay, Qazi Atabani.
No, there's nothing of that sort. Of course, something which would mislead you is that Sudan has a position regarding ICC. It so happens that the United States has more or less the same position. They think that it is too much politicized. But we have to remember, countries as important, as significant as Russia, China, India, many countries have the same objection. They think it is too politicized. That's the only concurrence.
The Russian delegate at the Security Council voted to send
that's the hypocrisy.
Voted to send the case to the International Criminal Court. You know that.
We know that 3 of the 5 permanent members were not signatory to the agreement, which means they are objecting to the agreement, and they decided to send Sudan. I mean, Sudan cannot be held responsible.
Right.
For that.
If I may,
no, please. I want to point from this side.
You know, having the ICC politicized or something that didn't give any kind of excuse actually for these people to commit crimes in Darfur, and is still committing these crimes.
The problem is you are committing crimes.
Okay, let me just finish in second point, and then you come to it.
Number two, these people actually, they accepted the 1593 resolution. They accepted. And Dr. Ghai Salah, I remember for interview with Al-Intibah, which is the government paper, he said that he blamed the government of Sudan for accepting that resolution. That resolution is very important.
Roland Marshall.
Just to one point I want to mention to you is, what is at stake is not only the suffering of Darfur people, is the suffering or the situation for the whole population of Sudan. So the move on the ICC may have consequences much beyond Darfur, and this is the point we have tried to raise.
All right, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to take a question from the lady in the third row.
Good evening. My name is Nasat Jamal. I'm from Canada. My question is addressed to those who are speaking for the motion. If human rights discourse is based in Western liberalist philosophy, isn't your position culturally inappropriate and essentially a neo-colonialist one?
Do you have a neo-colonialist position, Hani Shakala?
Is torture culturally specific? Is rape culturally specific?
It can
Is
be.
murder culturally specific? I think, you know, I'm an Arab and a Muslim. I don't like to be tortured. I don't like my children to be killed. I don't want my wife or my mother or my sister to be raped.
Rape and murder in instances of genocide.
This is what we're talking about.
I'm sorry.
This is what we're talking about. This is humanitarian law. We're speaking about international humanitarian law, in which all cultures have contributed. I think we, as Arabs and Muslims, as much as any Christian or atheist in Europe or America, should deplore torture, should deplore murder, should deplore rape.
I want to hear from the questioner again. You had something to say about this?
I was saying that rape and murder in cases of war are completely different from regular instances. So
they're all war crimes. What do you mean?
Do you support the murder of Gazans?
I personally am playing the devil's advocate. I agree with you, but I'm just doing it for the sake of debate.
Okay, thanks for admitting that. Right, we're going to move on to a gentleman in the sixth row there. You, sir.
I am Hassan Al-Juferi. I am a Qatari human rights activist. I wrote a letter to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Qatar 2 days prior to the arrival of Bashir to stop issuing him a visa to come. My question to those speaking against the motion: why only those dictators supporting al-Bashir? I wrote that letter, and I wrote 600 copies to all over Qatar. And 50% of the Sudanese read this letter, not even one complained about it.
Okay, so thank you very much. We have your question.
I am Hassan Al-Juferi. Thank you.
Well, actually, those who showed support to President Bashir were not the dictators of the world. It was evident the masses in many Arab countries expressed their support, and that was very visible. Second thing is, Sudan is being supported by the African Union, if you recognize that institution. It's being supported by the Arab League. It's being supported by the Group of 77. It's being supported by the Non-Alignment Movement. It's being supported by the Caribbean and Pacific countries. Actually, even within the Security Council, quite a number of members of the Security Council are supporting Sudan. So you're not talking about an isolated dictator here who's being supported by other dictators.
I'm going to go back to the questioner here, and then the panel. Please.
I'm not happy of what you said. Only those, you're talking about Africans, those who took instructions from Gaddafi to support. When you talk about civilized countries and developed countries and countries who have reputation in human rights, those who never have been supporting al-Bashir, what he did.
Okay.
I'm talking about
I'm going to let Roland Marshall.
all violators of human rights should be taken to court, either in Gaza or any part of the world.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Roland Marshall.
I give you 3 countries, okay? South Africa. Is a dictatorship? Just read newspapers. Is Ghana a dictatorship? Again, look, elections last year. They were exemplary. Is Benin Benin, I'm sorry, is a French-speaking country.
Ahmed
a dictatorship is a model for democracy in Africa.
He made 13 charities.
Ahmed Hassan Adam, please sit down.
13 charities have been given aid to the Sudan.
Excuse me, sir. We've answered your question. I'm going to take one more point from this, and then will you please sit down?
He's talking about South Africa. Wait for Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma is coming, and he's never going to invite Bashir for any kind of
I'm going to take a question from a lady in the 6th row. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Shahad from Sudan. My question is for motion. Can you really ignore the history that we've had with the civil wars in the presence of presidents? And how can we guarantee that without a president, that poverty and a nearly collapsing Sudan will occur again?
Okay, Ahmed Hassan Adam.
Yes, what I would like to say that having president like al-Bashir is not going to help to develop our country. It's not going to help to promote any kind of human rights. I think that Sudan will be better off if
he did allow in a huge humanitarian effort before he threw them out. He did allow in a huge humanitarian effort.
I think that for the Sudanese people and for the international community to stand for this. Otherwise, if you are appeasing him, because he's blackmailing everybody, he's blackmailing the people of Darfur, the people of Sudan, the entire international community by expelling this humanitarian organization. I think the right position is to stand up for al-Bashir.
Okay, all right.
Whether we like him or not, it's a fact that he is the president who had the courage to sign the most important and the most significant peace treaty, that is the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. And if he had the right partners on your side, he could have signed another agreement like that one in Darfur. Problem is, we don't have a partner, frankly speaking. With the South, we could reach an agreement which brought the country recognition and brought it peace. And what we are saying is exactly this. If you hand over the same person who's supposed to be the guardian of this peace agreement, you are throwing the whole country into chaos.
I want to go back to the questioner.
What will you think that Sudan will be without a president? It will be more damage and more brutal bloodshed.
Is that what you think?
Yes.
On the basis of what?
That our history, we've had presidents, and in the presence of the presidents, we've had civil war, resulting in no more than poverty and a nearly collapsed Sudan.
Could it be worse than it has been?
Yes, without a president.
Okay, I'm going to take a question from gentleman right at the back, please. You, sir.
Hello, good evening. My name is Muhammad Abdelghar Abdoun, and I'm from Sudan. Mr. Ahmed Hassan, I think that you are away from Sudan. You are living in London, and you are talking about the situation in Darfur. You are not an eyewitness. You are looks like us. You are saying, see that in the Jazeera or a BBC. My question is, how, according to what you say, that's a good for Sudan? It's not a good for Sudan. Maybe it's good for you, but it's not a good for Sudan. Thank you.
Of course. First of all, I don't want to go into personal issues, but I was in Darfur. I just came back from Darfur in the 1st of February. You have to know this. I was in Darfur and in the desert of Darfur. This is for sure. But also, we don't want to have this president who is killing our people right now. If you want to support this president, okay, support him. But I don't want to support him to continue killing our people as we speak right now.
Okay,
all right. Okay. I just want to. Okay, make it briefly.
Just very briefly. I do not understand. I'm still puzzled by the argument that crimes can be committed and not prosecuted, but we should not prosecute these crimes because they will complicate things on the ground. I mean, this is basically what you are saying. Yeah. You are admitting that crimes have been committed, gross human rights violation, war crimes, but we should not prosecute them because they complicate things on the ground.
You made the point. You made the point, and you've made it twice now. Can I just have the lady in the 4th row?
My question is for the opposition. One of your main points was the fact that the ICC is not equipped enough to handle this case. Who do you suggest is well equipped to do so instead?
Where are you from, please?
I'm from Sudan.
Thank you.
National judiciary. Recently, when we were visited by a committee from the African Union, we said to them, we can have special tribunals, We can have it as a transparent process for prosecuting people. But that's not my point. That's an important aspect of seeing justice being done. But what's more important to us in Africa is reconciliation. You know that the model, the experiment of the South Africans. Because when you're having...
I don't think you're answering the question.
No, the question is two sides.
Who is going to try people?
The national tribunals.
They will put President Bashir on trial?
Yes, Sudan, excuse me.
They will? Excuse me.
He has no substantive immunity. The president doesn't have substantive immunity in the Constitution.
He has.
He doesn't.
I can tell him.
He doesn't. He doesn't. You don't know the Constitution.
He's a presidential advisor.
He has procedural immunity like any other president anywhere in the world, because you don't take presidents every morning to the police station. You have to go through a certain procedure. This is
I'm going to take a word. I'm going to take a word. I'll come to you in a minute. I'm going to take a word from the questioner again, please.
Well, my point was that if the ICC is not equipped enough to do so, should this problem be ignored simply because...
No.
Then who else should take responsibility to judge this case?
The national judiciary, the national tribunal. The national judiciary. That is what the Rome Statute says.
You don't seem very impressed by that.
No, it's just, isn't that controlled by al-Bashir?
No, it's not. It's not. It's an independent judiciary. It's an independent judiciary, just like in any other country. It's an independent judiciary. But on top of that, the government expressed its willingness to make it as transparent as possible to anyone who wishes to...
Ahmed Hassan Adam.
The authority of investigation is raised on the Minister of Justice. A Minister of Justice is under the control and the...
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the point we're going to vote on the motion that this House believes that Arab states should hand over the Sudanese president to the International Criminal Court. If you would take, please, your voting machines, let me just explain how they work. If you want to vote for the motion, that is the side represented by Ahmed Hassan Adam and Hani Shakrallah, you will be pressing button 1, the yes button. If you want to vote against the motion, the side represented by Ghazi Atabani and Roland Marshall, you will press button 2, the no button, and whichever button you want to press, please do it now. All right, here is the vote. There it is, 55%. 55% for the motion, 45% against. The motion has been carried. All it remains for me to do is to thank our distinguished speakers for coming. Thank you very much indeed. And thanks to you, the audience, as well. The Doha debates will be back again next month. Till then, from all of us on the team, have a safe journey home. Good night. Thank you for coming. Good night.